What does it take to walk away from a Fortune 50 company and start something entirely of your own? Today, we're talking with Vanessa Mathews about her journey leaving corporate and starting her own business. I'm Taylor with Q City Metro, and here's Vanessa. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course, thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Amazing. Well, Vanessa, just tell us a little bit about your business, what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, so my business and what I do is probably more helpful if I give a little bit of context. So my professional background is in Homeland Security and emergency management. I actually majored in that in undergrad. Had an opportunity to work in local government for the city of Atlanta and Savannah, doing a lot of disaster preparedness, response, recovery work, whether it was a flood or a hurricane, or in some instances, a fire or an explosion, and working with emergency managers. So that kind of got me into the craft of what I do and the technical skill set. Then had an opportunity to work with the Department of Homeland Security in California doing terrorism mitigation for the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which was very interesting and very intense. And then I decided to leave the government sector, and I had a role with Gulfstream Aerospace Corporation, which was awesome. And I learned how important it was for risk, resilience, crisis management from a global manufacturing perspective. Um, and I had a chance to travel the world, probably about 12 to 15 locations every year, and really understand different risk profiles and how to build enterprise infrastructure programs for risk, resilience, and crisis management, helping organizations to train their workforces, to plan for them, but also to make sure that things were cohesive so that there could be a appropriate response at a corporate level. Left Gulfstream, decided to start the business that I own today, Asphalis Advisors, and then got a phone call from Lowe's Corporate in Charlotte to relocate to Charlotte to do the work that I did, Gulfstream, the Department of Homeland Security at Lowe's companies in Charlotte. So spent some time there before I built my bridge to entrepreneurship, and the rest is history.
Amazing. So you were still working a corporate job while you had your business.
Yes.
How was that?
Yeah, it was good from a planning perspective for a couple of reasons. One was, when I first graduated from college and then early in my career, I really didn't think about being an entrepreneur. That's not something that was top of mind, but I needed the structure of corporate and to understand why we do what we do, to get the background, to get the resources, to get the knowledge, and really to get to a place where I said, okay, I think I really want to become an entrepreneur and do this on my own. Like that passion probably wouldn't have came unless I had spent my time in corporate America. So yeah, I built my bridge and was able to, um, you know, start my firm, take the time to also figure out, well, what is my firm going to do that's different than the companies that I knew existed at that time, and have the what I would consider the runway to be able to truly run my full business.
Amazing. I'm going to come back to what that runway looks like, what the business does. But tell me a little bit more about why you decided to one, start the business and then to leave corporate altogether to focus fully on the business.
Yeah. So corporate gave me a lot of things. It gave me structure, it gave me exposure, especially Gulfstream. I had no idea that the world of private aircraft manufacturing existed, who buys private planes, and the reason why you need to manage risk when you're selling a $60 million product. I had no idea why those things existed. And so it gave me really what school doesn't give you, which is the reality and which is the side of business that you need in order to be successful. What corporate also showed me was the importance of culture and values and what's important. And I just learned over time that my peace of mind was not for sale. And it got to a place where I just reached a place where I felt like, and in particular for myself, I graduated from a historically Black college and university, Savannah State University, which I became the first female in the state of Georgia to graduate with a degree in Homeland Security and emergency management. And so it was also pretty challenging in the corporate environment to leave a space like an HBCU where who you are, your values, they are celebrated. and to walk in a corporate environment where the environment's very different, and whether that celebration, it looks different or it comes across differently. And that was also a challenge to have to navigate that in a corporate setting, especially when you're new and you were coming out of college like myself and just you don't know what you don't know, right? So for all those reasons, I got to a place where I decided, well, you know what you're doing, you're passionate about it, and I was at a place in my life where I could take the risk, and I just didn't really feel like there were major consequences if it didn't work out. So I was okay to make a leap and a jump and to try it. So I did.
And so this leap, you mean just starting the business, correct? Or
The ultimate leap of
the
leaving.
ultimate of leaving? Okay, okay. Okay, so do you recall that moment, or if it was a moment, maybe it was a series of moments where you were like, yeah, I'm done. I'm gonna bet on myself 100%. What did that look like?
Yeah, it was a number of different things. So it definitely tied back to culture and core values, which was a big deal for me. I learned over time that core values and culture has to be more than just the words on a wall. It has to be felt within the fabric and the DNA of a company. And my observation is corporate gets a lot of things right and they have structure and it works, and so does government. But I think it's also challenging. The more you grow and the more people that you add on, it's very hard to keep that fabric and that DNA, especially when you have leadership changes, CEO changes. Those things make an impact. If you're growing through mergers and acquisitions, those things change the fabric and the DNA of your company. And while I was often on small teams that were great, um, when that leadership transition happened time over time, it just continued to make an impact. And so at a certain point, I became aware that there's some aspects that corporate is just corporate and you almost can't help yourself, which is okay. But it kind of gave me the permission to say, well, let me just go try something different. I think the other thing was the more that I paid attention to contracting and the work that my industry does across the world, I also learned that the work that I was doing in corporate America and the value of that work in the marketplace were two different things. So my compensation from a salary perspective did not reflect what the marketplace valued in terms of the services if I were to transition what I do as an individual to a business. And that became very eye opening for me. And um, I was already qualified. And so, one thing that I just learned very early in my career is your experience is your experience, and people can never take that away from you. And how do you maximize the things that you know how to do? And how do you put that into a message that people will ultimately want to buy from you? So,
Did you have a runway? Because you said you felt like you could take the risk to leave. What did that, if you had a runway, what did it look like? Um, yeah, like, because I know a lot of people probably like, I want to do it, but like, there's a lot of fear that comes with that. What did that look like for you tangibly?
yeah. So, a couple of things happened. I my tenure with Gulfstream and at the so simultaneously I was working at Gulfstream and working at Delta Airlines part-time. So I learned a lot about the world of aviation and airplanes and also found a passion for that line of work. My tenure with Gulfstream ended unexpectedly. So that's probably one of the moments. If I go back and think about that. And in that moment, what I remember thinking was never again will I allow somebody to have the complete authority over when I can and cannot get paid, because you have to take care of yourself, right? So when that happened, I started Asphalis at my kitchen table while I was living in Savannah, Georgia, trying to figure out my next move. I wasn't ready to run a business full time and to build a team and all the things that I do today, but I was ready to never be in that position again and take some type of ownership for my career. So that bridge started then. I ended up selling the home that I owned in Savannah, saved all the money, and when I relocated to Charlotte, I moved in with three guys, and I shared actually four guys, and I shared a bathroom with three of them. So I put my 4-bedroom home in storage for 2.5 years, shared a bathroom with those guys, me and my dog, and I saved 70% of my income for 2.5 years. Simultaneously, I was getting my master's in business from University of South Carolina, and I didn't have to spend a lot of money because my overhead and my expenses were very, very nominal at that time. So that's what helped. And so once it came time for me to walk away, first of all, those dollars that I saved, I was able to put that in my marketing budget. It helped me to create my brand, to figure out the logo and, those important things of, well, who are you? What do you do? The website, those initial investments. But then once it came time to leave, I was able to leave with the plan and say, okay, well, I'll need this amount of money and this amount of time based on what I've been able to save, just in case I don't leave corporate with a customer and I have to go figure out what that looks like. I knew I had a little bit of time.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about Asphalis. Like, what do you guys do? What does a day in the life look like? Just for the average person who maybe isn't aware, like, how would you explain it to them?
So, Asphalis Advisors, well, first, our name is Greek for safe, secure, sure. And our purpose is twofold. We're here to help organizations to uncover their blind spots. And secondly, we're here to protect the legacy of leaders. The way we do that is we have 6 core values that are the non-negotiables in our business. And it's really how we show up every day internally and with our customers to really drive the technical aspect of what we do. So at a high level, we help companies to assess how effective they can prepare, respond, and recover from a disruption, whether it's as extreme as a cybersecurity threat or a supply chain disruption or a power outage that happens at your facility that shuts you down for 3 to 4 days. We also help companies to write the plans or the implementation or the infrastructure for if you were to experience something that impacts the loss of your people, the loss of your technology, the loss of the infrastructure that you don't own, like your power, your water, your sewer, or if you were to lose your third party partners and suppliers, how do you continue to run your own company? We help them build the technical plans so that if that were to happen to you for 2 weeks or 30 days or 60 days, how do you physically run HR, finance, payroll, operations, IT? And we put those details down on paper so that if and when it happens, you're prepared. The third thing we do is we teach leaders at different levels of the organization how to be confident and competent when a crisis happens. So every day, people typically know their roles. But when a crisis hits, does your board know? Does your executive team know? Do your vice presidents know? Do your directors know? Do your managers know? And helping them to understand how their role changes in times of peace and in time of war is very, very critical. So there's different mechanisms that we use to be able to do that. But at a high level, that's what we do.
Awesome. And so everything that you just described seems like things that would be helpful for someone starting a business. Do you feel like your experience in risk management and all these things helped you personally as you were starting your business?
I would say yes. What I currently do as a business owner in risk helped me start a business because I think from a risk-based approach, it's also pretty scary because typically I think of the worst case scenario, which sometimes is not something that a business owner is focused on because you have to have hope. And I think you have to be partly insane to be a business owner to keep going. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Now, what has been the biggest risk for you since you've started and done this on your own? Have there been moments where you're like, I don't know how this is gonna go? And how do you navigate those moments?
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge has been a couple things. One is business happens in cycles. And when I first left corporate, it took 2 years for us to become profitable and get into the black. So all of the things that I saved before then became very handy. And so thank God my mom is a finance professional and she taught me those principles. So the cyclical nature of business, meaning There's times of feast and there's times of famine. And when you're in feast, you have to save for the famine because the famine's going to come, and the famine hits in different waves. I think the other component that has been challenging is there's always this question about capacity versus scale. And it is very hard to solve it based on our business model. And what I mean by that is oftentimes for our business and the way that we're structured, the client or the partner comes, then the finances, and then the resources. And in a corporate setting, or if you're backed by equity partners, it's the complete opposite. You can get the resources before everything else comes in, and it gives you time and a runway. And in our business, that's not the case. So that has often been the challenge. I bootstrapped my business from the beginning. We haven't had an investor yet. So from a financial perspective, we've always had to figure it out in any type of investments that we've wanted to do. I have to be very mindful myself as well as my finance team of where does that come from and how do we preserve what we're bringing in so that we can make the proper investments. One of the things that I will say that has been valuable is my finance team has helped me to make sure that we have that type of structure. So I typically take whatever profits are remaining and we think about, hey, what's the strategy for the following year to reinvest it back into the business? You know, whether it's a new person, whether it's technology, we're very, very intentional about how we spend the funds that we have and what's remaining over year.
Gotcha. And what's been the most surprising part of running this business full time?
The most the most surprising part of running the business. So probably a couple things. One is finally getting to a place, which again takes time. We've been in business for 12 years at this point. Getting to a place where people depend on you for their salary. So when you want to quit, you can't because somebody is depending on you for their household and their family and their plans. And if you just pull that from underneath them, that's challenging. I think the other thing that's been surprising is the customers and the partners that we've been able to acquire over the years. We have a great client portfolio, great brands that we work with. And when we bring on new hires, the look of shock on their face when they see the types of brands that we work with. We don't advertise often who we're partnering with and who they are. Not every company wants you to know that they work with the crisis management firm. Some are okay with it. But it has taught me that also those organizations have great leadership because one of our competitors is doing nothing. And you have the option to do nothing even though you know all the risk. But oftentimes our partners are not the ones that want to do nothing. And then thirdly, I would say the most surprising is, literally, I think you have to be partly insane to be a business owner. The best way somebody described it to me was being a business owner is like waking up every day and somebody gut punches you in the stomach. And then you go to bed at night and you wake back up in the morning and they gut punch you again. And you get up and you keep waking up every morning knowing you're going to get gut punched and you do it anyway. And to me, that's insane because I used to box and there's no way that I would walk into a boxing ring and, want to be gut punched. But that is what business ownership is like because you just never know what's going to happen or when the other shoe falls or when something that you were planning on doesn't come into fruition. And when you're a small business like ours, in terms of size and number of people, little things add up to big things and they make a big difference. And that's something that's been surprising is just the ability to stick with it until you see it through.
Yeah. So what makes you want to get up and get gut punched again? Like what makes it worth it for, to do it?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's a couple of things. One reason that I feel like I get up every day to do it is because when my friends If you were to ask my friends, what's a common trait about Vanessa? Determination is one of those traits. If I set my mind to it, I'm going to do it. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to do it. And that is me. So there's a vision that God has given me for Asphalis, and I've seen parts of it, but I have not seen it come to pass. And I am determined to prove that he was right and that I heard him right and that it's coming. So I'm not giving up. So that's one thing. Secondly, when I went on maternity leave the first time with our first child, I came back and I honestly just wanted to be a barista. I took 4 months off. I didn't work. I didn't have to talk to people. I didn't have a calendar. I didn't have to be in a meeting. And it was just like, wow, this is great. But then I realized the lifestyle that I want is not a barista lifestyle today. So what that taught me was, how do I utilize the birth of our new son to reinvigorate my why and my passion? And it became important to me to say, okay, well, as his mom, how do I show him work ethic? My parents grew up working in corporate, in government, and I learned a lot of work ethic for them. Our son will be able to live in a home with an entrepreneur. And if he decides to go that route, I can be the seeds that show him about that work ethic. And then lastly, what I would say is, my personal belief is that if I don't do it, who will? And here's the reason why I say that. I was just meeting with the customer the other day. Minorities in the field of Homeland Security and emergency management are minorities, and we almost don't exist. And in particular, African American women. And when I go to conferences or different things like that, there's typically less than 10 that you can name on one hand. And 10 is abundant of who all or who else is doing what I've been doing for as long as I've been doing it at the level that we've been working at. And my concern is, if I stop, other women, other minorities, whether you're African American or not, you won't ever get to see what you're supposed to see. So what's interesting is, when I read with my son at night, he'll look at a book. And the kids that look like him, he says, "Mama, that's me." He can see himself in the book. And it truly does matter for you to be able to see yourself. I felt the same way in corporate America. And in both corporations that I worked in, there was never an executive leader that looked like me. Never. There were women, but not who looked like me. So another part of leaving corporate was, well, there's no room for me here, because you can't find any. Out of 50,000 people, not one. So I think having visibility and someone who's willing to put in the time to do the work, I think is just so important, especially for the next generation.
All right, guys, we were having a great time talking with Vanessa Mathews, but now we've got some rapid fire questions. You ready? One sentence or less.
Got it.
Okay. Our first question is, what has been a major crisis for you guys?
Going 365 days with no revenue.
Sheesh. Okay. What was your family and friends' response to you leaving your corporate job?
She's crazy.
Okay. What do you miss about corporate?
Collaboration, resources.
And our last one is, how many hours a week do you work?
Depends on the week. 40 to 60. Easy.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that was it. You did good. Good job. We're going to wrap it up soon, but I have two final questions for you. What does a day in your life working as an entrepreneur, leadership look like?
Oh, that's a good question. So if I think back to probably a week ago, Mondays are typically internal. meetings and you get to focus. I plan 3 weeks ahead every Monday and work backwards so I know what I need to prioritize. A lot of our customers have all of their leadership meetings on Tuesday mornings. So if I'm flying out of town, I fly out at like a 5:30 flight out of the airport. I'm back home by dinner or right when dinner ends. If they're local clients, we're typically in those leadership meetings whenever those opportunities exist. Oftentimes, depending on the work, my team might be coming into Charlotte or some other city that we're working in to deliver the services that we provide. I could be interviewing, I could be marketing and branding, I could be um, having a conversation from a business development perspective to grow our portfolio, or at a conference or some type of speaking engagement that our clients have asked us to participate in. So that there's never a day that is the same.
Mm-hmm. Do you enjoy that?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I get bored easily, so I have to have things that are different to keep me on my toes.
Same. Okay, well, our final question is for anyone who is thinking about leaving their corporate job to start their own business, what advice do you have? The biggest piece of advice that you have for them?
So, depending on the day of the week, I'll tell you don't do it because you're insane. But in all seriousness, the past 2 or 3 people that have asked me that question, I have 7 more questions for you. And a couple of them are, it depends on what you're trying to build. Why are you leaving corporate? And one of the things that I did is I started a consulting business and I've never been a consultant and I never had a partner. So is there anybody else that you can partner with that can help to give you the other half of what you're going to need in your business? So I ask a lot of questions and I get people to think, because when I started, I had this adrenaline rush and then I was so naive about reality. Luckily, I had 2 years, but the Vanessa Mathews now, there's no way I could have started a business with the family, with the kids. Your responsibilities look different in life as you continue to mature. But I left corporate at 25. That looks very different 12 years later. So it just depends on what you're trying to build and what you're trying to get accomplished.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. Can you please tell everyone how they can connect with you and your business and what should they look out for?
Yeah. So if you would just like to stay connected to me, I'm on LinkedIn, Vanessa V. Mathews with 1T. For those of you who might be chief operating officers, chief risk officers, or CIOs, and you're looking to have better infrastructure and risk management for your business, you can go to asphalisadvisors.com as well as on LinkedIn, and we can definitely stay connected there as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment to let us know what you enjoyed, what you would like to hear more about. We'll continue to do this here on YouTube, but you can also read more about the work that Q City Metro is doing in Charlotte on our website, and you can subscribe to our newsletter. Everything's in the caption below. Thank you.